I'm going to ask you some questions. Judith, you're already a disciple of Jesus Christ. Do you acknowledge this further call on your life? And do you willingly and joyfully submit yourself as God's servant and as a minister in God's church?
I do, for God has called me.
So we come to hear of how God's worked his grace in your life and how God has called you to ministry. Tell us something about the story of what's brought you to this point.
Well, I think most of the people who know the story already, but I really felt a call to ministry, to Christian ministry when I came to faith as a child. So it's pretty certain that my primary role would be to serve God. And as I studied my A-levels, I had an impression that I should go to Bible college, but I didn't act on that. And shortly after, life took a different turn as Mark and I got married and had family. And we moved in up the road not long after, and I came along to Cowes Baptist Church. And I'd grown up in the Church of England, but I came along to this Baptist church and I didn't hear anything heretical that day. So I thought it seemed okay, and we had received a really warm welcome, and so we stayed. And the love and the support continued, and I've always received just so much encouragement from this church family. And I've been given so many opportunities to serve and explore and develop my gifts, including studying at theological college. And as I finished that study, I felt drawn to a wider ministry than just youth work. And when John Miles accepted the call to Jude Magna, I felt challenged that I hadn't really explored that long-held sense of calling. And I prayed about it. And I told the Lord that if it wasn't just something in my head, then I needed to hear it from other people. And straight away, I found myself being asked by all sorts of people from this church and from wider places if I'd considered going into ministry. But asking the church meeting if they would commend me to go to the ministerial recognition panel was the scariest thing I have ever done. And going to that ministry recognition panel was a close second. But I had faith that whatever the outcome, I had been obedient in pushing the door. And when Colin called to say that the panel would commend me for ministry formation, again that was a pretty scary moment for me and for Mark. But God is good, and he led me to Bristol Baptist College, where I was embraced by a loving and supportive learning community. It was a really safe space to explore and be stretched and shaped. And I had no idea what would happen after that time, because we were unable to move from the island, and there were no Baptist churches needing ministers here. However, in the last months, Francis left, and suddenly there were some churches here on the island needing ministers. And but in that time, between John Miles being here and Francis coming, when I was helping out and being a bit more involved, God gave me a real deep love for this church family. So much so that I actually questioned whether my call to ministry was a general call or just to serve this church. And when I began formation, it felt quite odd to think that I wouldn't be ministering here, although I was certainly not expecting that that would be the case. When Francis left, I began to pray again. Was God calling me here, or was that just too convenient? And was it wise to minister in a church that you've been part of for so long? And do we know each other too well? Again, I thought I will push the door and see. And I read the church's profile that the church had prepared, and I thought that seems to fit. And I sent my profile in and had an interview, the same as anybody else. I preached with a view on the Sunday before lockdown, and so there could be no church meeting to discern whether the church was to call me here or not. However, the diaconate asked me to take on some more hours as I was already helping out and take a lead through the pandemic. So we just got on with the job, and eventually in August, via a Zoom secret ballot, the church called me to be pastor here at Cowes, and I began last October. So I've been in post a whole year, which makes today seem a little strange. But there was not been strange about the last 20 months. So I thank God for bringing me here over 30 years ago to a loving and very tolerant church family who allowed me to try out all sorts of things, who supported all the things I presented them with, when my enthusiasm was often much greater than my wisdom. All sorts of youth work, messy church, some saliva, open the book, renew well-being, and much more. And like a parent, you have been incredibly patient with me through all the stages of my faith. You've nurtured my infant faith, and you've tolerated my adult teenage faith, and you've encouraged a more mature faith. So I thank you for the faith you've put in me over the years, but I thank you even more for the faith in the Lord that you have demonstrated to me and lived out to me. So I pray as we journey on together that we will help one another to continue to grow and lead others as well to faith in the Lord.